Reddit has been the home of many insane stories and confessions over the years across its various subreddits, but none seem to come close to r/confessions. Users have a certain level of anonymity when they make throwaway accounts and post these confessions, and it seems to want to just coerce people into telling the most deepest, darkest secrets of their lives. So let's experience some together today. From arson to felony corruption and everything in between. Make sure you watch until the end of this one. This is kind of a new series that I hope you guys enjoy, where you can just put this on while you work or do things in the background and get caught up on some insane Reddit posts that I curate for you specifically. We're going to start things off with perhaps the most dark confession of this entire collection, so brace yourselves as this might set the tone. This user's post is titled, "I got into my car and almost drove away while my kids slept." 2 years ago, my ex-wife Melanie, 37 female, and I, 36 male, separated. The divorce was a mutual decision made by the fact that she was cheating on me with a coworker and wanted to be with him. We had 5 kids together and a cat. Based on several factors, she has weekly visitation and I have full custody of them, but doesn't ever show up for the visitation and seems to have given up on the children. I work as a teacher, an already exhausting job as it is, and I spend every minute of my day either with my kids or kids that aren't mine, cooking and cleaning and breaking up fights and grading papers, and then by the time the kids are asleep, the fucking cat, still love him though, wants attention and I want to scream from the top of my lungs. I'm tired. I'm fucking exhausted. I can't do this. I'm working and taking care of 6 living, breathing beings, and I feel betrayed, and I'm so tired. Last night, I stood up and walked out of the house, got in the car, and started it. The kids were asleep, and I sat there, in the car, 5 seconds away from driving away. I wanted to drive away. I wanted to drive until I ran out of gas. And then I thought about my kids waking up and not having anybody around, and I walked back inside. But I still want to run away. This morning, I wanted to run away. I had to restrain myself from driving away while driving to work. I hate myself for being so quick to want to drive away from my kids. My kids, who I love more than anything in the world, were so quick to not having a father. Not really sure what OP means by that. This morning, while I was driving to work, I made peace that I wasn't going to drive away. I wanted to veer off the road and into a ditch and perish. I feel awful for this. I want to scream it from the rooftops. I feel awful, and yet I know that I will fight the urges again in a few minutes when school lets out. Now, that is just a haunting piece of writing. I mean, it's some serious truth that this person is trying to drop on us, but it's a dark look into the nature of being a parent. And I mean, I really hope this is one of those times where it's just some weird Redditor trying to get karma and doing some creative writing instead of somebody who's actually thinking this every day, because that's not a healthy thing to be thinking as you're a parent, for both the parent and the child, obviously. The replies I'm not going to show specifically for this one, but they're pretty mixed, all with the same sentiment at least of being impressed by simply how honest OP was being in this post. I mean, these are thoughts that I think many of us, if we ever had them, would never even think to tell another soul about. So it is kind of crazy that, again, this just gets shared on the internet to be read by random people like you and I. Anyways, let's move on from that pretty dark intro into a story/confession that this new user has about how they possibly stole or gained tens of thousands of dollars from their company that was going under, that they simply were just a manager at. This post is titled, "I illegally sold my company's office after layoff." I'm using a clone account for reasons you can probably guess. I used to work as a technical program manager at an offshore office for a Fortune 500 US company. Our team had about 30 people at its peak: designers, software engineers, business analysts, and me, the only TPM. In 2023, the company laid off the entire office. I was asked to stay on as the last person to handle all the paperwork, return tasks, and equipment before they fully shut things down. After wrapping up my tasks, I waited for months without hearing anything from the company. No emails, no updates, just silence. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I sold all the office equipment on the black market. nearly 60 MacBook Pros, around 100 ultra-sharp monitors, over 100 Herman Miller chairs, plus desks, TVs, and other office gear. It's been over a year now and still no word from the company, so I think I'm in the clear. Nervous emoji. Update. The reason I'm sharing this is because the office management vendor already went into our lease space and cleared everything out so another company can move in after our lease ended. If I hadn't sold all the equipment beforehand, it would have just been thrown out by the vendor. I don't know about you guys, but it seems like OP is trying to really bargain with the idea that he just finessed his old company out of, again, tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, we're talking Herman Miller chairs, MacBook Pros. This is some bougie Silicon Valley office stuff, dude. He definitely is making some crazy profit on that. The replies in this are pretty obvious. The top reply being, if this is true, delete this post. You could trigger someone to look, the world is big and tiny at the same time, and I wouldn't be rolling the dice on this because it sounds like you probably made a nice profit. And pretty much every other comment is agreeing with this person. I mean, the universe is screaming to this guy, delete this post. You don't need the internet points, you dork. And now you could face some serious legal trouble if anybody from your old company decides to think, oh, this sounds a lot like our situation. Timing-wise too, I mean, he even named a specific year. No amount of alt accounts is going to save you from being caught from that if somebody who experienced it reads it, which it was on the front page, so I'm sure they could. In keeping up with the theme of crime with these stories, I figured we'd go into the third story here, titled, When I Was 9, I Started the Biggest Fire My Town Had Seen in 150 Years. When I was 9, my older cousin, 14, stayed with me and my family for a couple of weeks. My cousin was a troublemaker, and her parents had hoped that sending her to ours would keep her out of trouble for a little while. One day, while she was over, I asked if we could go to one of our local forest areas and make a fire to roast marshmallows. When we got down there, we made a little makeshift campfire out of newspaper and sticks all on top of rock. Eventually, my curiosity got the better of me and I started chucking different things into the fire. Leaves, sticks, pine cones, anything I could find in the little area we were in. Then I wondered what a leaf on a tree would do if we set fire to it. My cousin got her lighter and lit a small leaf on a nearby tree. I stared at the reaction in awe, and my cousin set a group of leaves on fire. We laughed as we watched the fire slowly engulf the branch. Once the fire burnt itself out, we carried on setting fire to bushes and branches and then realized that the fire wasn't dying out. In fact, it was spreading. My cousin started to freak out as she realized the fire wasn't stopping. The summer heat wave had made everything so dry that it was catching fire extremely quickly. She grabbed my hand and we ran to the dirt road that was on the outskirts to the forest. But instead of calling 999, we just stood there, watching it as it spread and spread and spread. My cousin almost called them multiple times, but I kept telling her I didn't want to get into trouble, so she never did. It eventually spread so much that the fire department had trouble controlling it and had to order an evacuation of a nearby village. It was said to be the biggest fire the town had seen in 150 years. No one was hurt, but it did take 10 hours to get under control. It wouldn't have been as bad if I hadn't stopped my cousin calling 999 when we first lost control. Both I and my cousin had promised not to tell a soul, but 12 years on and my guilt is still here. I still feel terrible about it. This one is just crazy because you know how much this post means to this person. They have been carrying this guilt for 12 years, wondering when this story is going to catch back up with them. And I mean, again, this might just be a Streisand effect here, and you cause more attention to come back to the fact that this existed in the first place, because I'm sure the area was devastated, but it's been 12 years and there was no loss of life as a result of it happening, so I'm sure a lot of people have moved on. But to think of how terrifying that is, I mean, when you're that age, you're not thinking of the consequences of anything. You're, still over a decade away from your prefrontal cortex, or whatever it's called, fully, solidifying. You're just acting on impulse left and right, and also fire's pretty lit. So, I mean, no pun intended there, but it's a fascinating thing to young minds. I get it. I'm not endorsing this, obviously, this was dumb as hell, but to know that you started the biggest fire that the area has seen for a century and a half is kind of insane, and I get why this person feels so guilty. Sadly, it sounds like even through updates from the OP, this has really been eating them up, so I hope they're able to get some counseling or therapy and talk this out so that this weight doesn't get carried by them for the rest of their lives. This next one sounds almost too good to be true, but it's a very interesting story about what's happening on the TV quite literally popping out into real life for this OP in a way that they could never imagine. The title of the post is, "My coworker called in sick, but I swear I saw him at a crime scene on the news." So this happened last week, and I still can't stop thinking about it. I work at this small office and we're a pretty tight-knit group, so when someone calls in sick, it's usually not a big deal. But my coworker Mark called in on Thursday with this over-the-top dramatic voice saying he had the flu and could barely move. I wish him well and moved on with my day. That night, I was eating dinner and half watching the local news when something caught my attention. They were covering a robbery at a gas station a few miles away from my place. The footage was grainy, but they showed this dude in a hoodie and mask sprinting out of the store. He was tall, had the same build as Mark, and the kicker, he had this distinct limp. Mark had twisted his ankle the week before. At first, I laughed it off. I mean, what are the odds, right? But then they interviewed a witness who said the guy drove off in a silver car. Mark drives a silver Honda. I started feeling that weird mix of disbelief and, oh crap, is this real? The next day, Mark comes into work, walking perfectly fine, by the way. I casually asked how he was feeling, and he goes, oh, way better, just needed to get some rest. But here's the thing, he was weirdly specific about what he did while he was sick. Like, oh, I just laid on the couch, watched some Netflix, drank Gatorade, nothing exciting. Now, I didn't say anything because what do you even say? Hey, did you rob a gas station? But I swear, every time I catch him glancing at me, it's like he knows I know. The kicker? Yesterday, someone brought donuts to the office, and Mark joked, if I ever robbed a store, it'd be for these. Everyone laughed, but I couldn't even look at him. I'm not saying he did it, but I'm not saying he didn't. Honestly, of all the stories in today's, collection, this one to me seems the most, I'm a dork that just wanted to make up a story for karma. But the way it was written was pretty intriguing. I mean, there's just little things about it that just seem a little bit too perfect to be true. The whole, he had a very specific limp, and now that I think about it, totally did sprain his ankle in the office last week. You know what I mean? And then the whole thing at the end, it just feels like one of those, and then everyone clapped moments or stories. But if this is true, that is absolutely insane, and dude, I'm sorry, you gotta take that secret to the grave. They didn't really explain the robbery all that much. Sounded like a pretty simple, GTA 2 wanted stars type thing, but still, if somebody's down bad enough to do that, that shows that they are pretty, insane, and probably wouldn't shy away from doing things in retaliation to you snitching on them if they ever found out. So again, I would just stay in your lane with this one and maybe even delete the post. I don't know, what do you guys think? I don't even know what I would do in this situation, but that wraps it up for the first installment of this series of videos. If you like this, again, let me know what the most unhinged story was, as well as please let me know if there are specific subreddits you'd want me to react to, because Reddit is full of insane stuff. Whether it be scary, funny, cringy, we can do it all. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. Until next time, peace out.